Hey there, and welcome back to PAO Fans International Podcast. The Americans are back. It's me and Alex today, ready to just talk about Panathinaikos FC and PAO BC. Alex, what's up, man? It's been a minute.
What's up, Antoni? Yeah, I always say it's been a long time because we switch. Sometimes it's Alki, sometimes it's you, sometimes I'm not there. But this time it actually was a long time because we were talking about it. It's been at least 2 months um, since me and you spoke. A lot happened. I came and went from Greece. We have a new coach in soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot's happened. So yeah, it's definitely been a long time, longer than usual.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, last time we talked, it was 2 months ago. We had the old coach Alonso still, so we definitely have seen some changes. I'm kind of excited to finally get back into it and talk about it a little bit. So good thing is we had a positive result this weekend. Panathinaikos FC. We played away to Panaitolikos. That's a tough game. We came out winning in that game. We won 2-1 against the side that's been a bit of a challenge to play against, especially in their home ground. Um, we ended up having a couple goal scorers on the score sheet. I believe it was Tete with the first goal, and then Arau scored the winning goal there in dramatic fashion in extra time. Um, Alex, I just kind of want to get your opinion on that game. What'd you see? Were there positive takeaways? Anything that kind of maybe drew your attention when you watched that game?
Um, it was good. I mean, I think we controlled the game for most of the game. We had our fair share of chances. Um, I think kind of the same problems are persisting. Uh, Finishing, defensive lapses. And listen, Panaitolikos is not to be taken lightly. I think we all knew that leading up to the game because they're going into the match. I think they were maybe one spot behind us. We were fifth and they were sixth going into it. Obviously now things are different, but they're still going to challenge for that sixth spot. Probably not the fifth spot because Addis is quite good this year, but they'll challenge for that sixth spot. Anyway, they're good. They're really good. They're the Esteras of old years. They're the Lamia. They're that sixth team, and they've proven it by beating top five opponents. Um, and we almost dropped points like Huayak and Addis did. So they're good, and they showed it. Uh, it was going to be hard. I mean, credit to them. I think they played actually some really nice football, like in contrast to the Lamias who sit back and close up shop. They played very open. They wanted to score, especially in that second half. They came out from the locker room like there was a plan. Um, they just played well. Like so, I gotta give them credit. And they maybe even they deserved a draw, but I think for I'd say for 60 to 70 minutes, we were pretty good. They had a 10 to 15 to 20 minute, maybe not 20-minute, but 10 to 15-minute period at the beginning of that second half where I think they were exploiting um, our issues defensively. And they scored pretty early on, 50, 51st, 52nd minute. And maybe they could have even had a second before the 60th, but then they fizzled out. Um, I've said a lot. Um, I've said a lot about them, not much about us, but I wasn't dissatisfied. I guess I'm gonna say this one last thing. I guess the concern that I have, the general concern that I have, apart from the bad finishing and the defensive lapses, is this is kind of now becoming a pattern, and I've probably said it on the past in the past. You know, things that are repeated become patterns, and if they're negatives, then they become a concern. And what I'm picking up on is this kind of tale of two halves thing with under Rui Vittoria, which there's not a big sample size, but it kind of went very similarly to the Djurgården game, where we were very good the first half, very bad the second half, and I think Djurgården has a little bit more quality, which is why they were able to put two passes in the second half, and Panaitolikos didn't. But you're going to play good opponents, and I don't think Helsinki is that you know, they're probably somewhere at the level of Panaitolikos, but my point is that the tale of two halves can't keep happening, and they're very similar too. Like we scored early on in both games. So against Panaitolikos, we scored in the 10th minute. Against Djurgården, we scored in the 17th minute. So we took a 1-0 lead early on in both games, went into half 1-0, and then in both games they scored within 7 minutes of the restart. Panaitolikos at 52 and Djurgården at 49. So they're very similar, not just surface level similar, like more like raise an eyebrow kind of similar. So it's something to look look for. I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I definitely noticed the tale of two halves thing. I for whatever reason, I just kind of had a feeling that we were gonna be able to pull out this win. Not that I'm some Nostradamus or anything, but I just, I knew the game was gonna be tough, but it felt like that break. I think Nick mentioned it today, or maybe it was Sturge. The break came at like a perfect time to help us out a little bit. So we were able to kind of get ourselves reorganized a little bit. Unfortunately, we didn't have Foti. Um, who, by the way, I missed it. Who played as our striker yesterday?
Yeremayev started. He was pretty ineffective. Spore came on. I don't know. I think we'll have a Yeremayev Spore talk at some point, but both are
Okay.
not convincing. Both are not convincing.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what it was. Good thing again. We were able to get on the score sheet with Tete, I think it was, or Juricic actually. Um, Early on, I think it was like the first 10 minutes or so again. Super, super good there. I've been loving Juricic. And then, we kind of invited Panaitolikos into the game a little bit. Uh, Again, something that is a little bit concerning, you kind of pointed towards is like our lack of finishing. Like there was a few chances that I saw where we could have scored. Definitely could have gotten a couple more on the score sheet if we were more clinical, I believe. But um, overall, I'm liking that we're starting to see a little more direct play in our attack. Like with Alonso, I think one of my concerns was like we would get the ball, but we weren't really doing much with it. Like we were just kind of getting it, running forward, and not doing much. I'm seeing a little bit more positivity with
Yeah,
Rui.
I noticed that a lot in the first half of Djurgården where it was sustained pressure until that goal came. And yeah, it happened early in the 17th minute, but even prior to that 17th minute, basically for the all the first 17 minutes, it was sustained pressure. It wasn't just that empty possession that you were talking about. I don't know. I haven't looked closely enough to see why that completely went out the door in the second half. That's kind of the question in the Djurgården game and in this Panaitolikos game, because I think our chances were more scarce in this second half too. Maybe I could get that up. But I do agree that the there is more sustained pressure, not empty possession, doing stuff with the possession. Um, even like from the midfield players, it was the game before this one, I think, where Unahi had, he had like 5 chances on his own and he was kind of unlucky not to get on the score sheet. So like to have a handful of chances from, let's just say your center mid, I don't remember, maybe Cam, I don't remember what position he was exactly playing that game, but not one of your typical attacking players to have a handful of chances that were, decent is a good sign.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. We've been seeing some positivity again. Like one thing that I like, and we haven't had the chance to talk about on the podcast, like since Rui got hired, is I do like that he kind of set some realistic expectations. I feel like when he first gave his interview to the team, kind of, we need to build a foundation a little bit, try to get things figured out, and coming in the middle of a season, we're not going to see like his full blueprint on the team just yet, but we're starting to see a little bit of it being implemented a little bit. Like you said, there's not really as many empty possessions as we saw before. Like, yeah, we had the possession of the ball before under Alonso, but really we weren't doing much with it. It was just kind of like playing FIFA. You pass the ball side to side, back and forth, and not really doing much. So we're seeing a little more substance in our attack. Again, I think we're a little bit handicapped at the moment because Fotti's injured, and we don't. Jerry and Spora aren't really reliable goal scorers. So we're kind of lacking there. We've been relying on our wing players, and thank God, Juricic has been in form. Tetes bailed us out a few times. So here's hoping that Foti can kind of, get into his rhythm again after he comes back from injury. He hasn't really been able to find any form this year because of, recovering from that injury over the summer. Then he got injured again, and now he's out again. So we'll see. I would like to see how this team would be performing with a solid point up top, with an informed Foti. Overall, we've already kind of been talking about Helsinki a little bit, kind of previewing it. I agree with a lot of points that you were making. The good thing is that it sounds like Helsinki is going through a pretty rough patch, and they're an opponent that, on paper, again, do seem to be a little bit lower tiered compared to us. I mean, I personally thought the same thing against Djurgården, and we ended up losing. But this is a game where I think we really need to, as I think Nick and Sturge again were saying, like, we need to try to get out of our scoring woe a little bit, maybe build some confidence, finish our chances, score a couple goals, and just put on a solid performance from start to finish. Because again, we don't want to see a solid start to the game and then tale of two halves, like you mentioned, come out and you just are completely flat, or you invite them and you allow the pressure into the game. So hopefully this will be another positive for us as we kind of head into that. What are your thoughts?
The really bad thing is that we are dropping points from winning positions, which is not something obviously that you want to be doing, and not something that we should be doing considering we're, all the opponents that we're playing, I would not say are better than us. Let's just say that. Like, if you're up 1-0 against Real and then Real flips a score and you're not going to cry about it. But none of these teams that we're playing are better than us. At best, they're even with us, and in most cases, they're actually worse than us. So to not be winning once you're up feels really bad, obviously, but it's particularly bad when you're playing lesser opponents. And I'm thinking about, a lot of games recently. Okay, it almost happened with Panaitolikos. We got saved at the end, but it happened against Aris too. Okay, I know Aris was Alonso, but I do think this trend has transgressed um the coach, because it happened against Djurgården with Rui. So I think this is more of like a team thing rather than a coach thing. Maybe it's Alonso DNA sticking around even with Rui here. I don't know exactly. This is just, this is that now that's just an arbitrary talk, but it is a trend that's happening. And yeah, you cannot, once you go up 1-0 against these kind of opponents, you have to put the game away. And usually that, the easiest way to do that is score another goal, which obviously has been a problem we haven't been able to do because we've been wasteful in our chances, but also close up shop in the back. Like if like it has to go both ways. Like in a weird way, like I don't want to say like I'm not overly reliant on one or the other. Both have to kind of be sound, and by both I mean the attack and the defense, because you should be able to close up shop 1-0. I don't mean sit back, but I mean just be sound defensively, and you also should be able to go up 2-0. Both, in other words. So it's kind of disappointing to see neither going, because at the end of the day, at least one should be working out, either being able to go 2-0 up, or just keep the clean sheet, but neither is happening. We saw that in Djurgården, couldn't do either. Adis couldn't do either. So yeah, I don't want to say specifically like, listen, if we go up early, should chase that second goal that's been elusive in those games like Adis and Panaitolikos and Djurgården. But also like can't concede right out of the half, like happened against Djurgården and Panaitolikos and Aris too. They scored more like the 65th ish minute, I think. But you know, yeah, I need to see better on both sides because yeah, I'd be apt.
Yeah, no, I mean you brought up a good point, and it kind of makes me think a little bit too, Alex. I think some of this even kind of goes back a little bit towards the end of Tareem too. Like some of these like lost leads or just like these mental lapses and these tale of two halves issues. You know, again, we have a new
That's why
squad this
that's
year.
why I'm not convinced it's the coach. Alonso did a lot of bad things, but
Yeah.
we've seen this like you pointed out with all the coaches, Tareem, Rui. Okay, we can't hold him super accountable yet because he's new and he's not even had a month under his belt, and he's inheriting a disaster from Alonso. But like you said, Rui, Alonso, Tareem, even under Yova towards the end, like this was happening. So it's partially the coach, but partially something else.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There's something to it. You know, maybe there's just this lack of continuity, all these switching of coaches. I don't know. Again, these are professional players, but I'm sure over time it takes a toll on a culture in terms of a team. Um, I'm just hoping that again that we do find some continuity. And the good thing again with playing an opponent like Helsinki, all respect to them, but this is a type of game where you can, chase like you said that elusive goal, that second goal, and to just control a match. I know you can't fully control a match from start to finish all the time, but this is a good opportunity to try to kind of implement or gain some confidence against a lower opponent as we kind of head into the rest of the season. Really, the positive thing going back as well, we're only 2 points away from first place. I mean, if you
But I
had
do
told
want
me
to
that,
talk about that. Yeah, I do want to
yeah,
talk about that. But I do want to point out. Do you want to? Okay, let's finish the league and then let's go to Helsinki. So,
okay, yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, like you said, we're 2 points out, which is pretty insane considering how bad we've been, and how long Alonso stayed longer than he should have. Um, but I think what's more crazy is this. Not only are we just in general bad and the performance has been bad, but our record is also not good, meaning we are winless in derbies in the first half. So we have one more game before the first half of the regular season closes. We're 12 games in. Next week will be 13. That'll be half. We don't have any more derbies. So through half the season, we are, I think, 3 draws. We've drawn PAOK, Aris, Olympiacos, and we've lost to AEK. So we're 3 draws and 1 loss. We are winless in derbies, and we're 2 points back, which is absolutely insane because derbies are big because they're 6 pointers. You get to take points off your competition, and we have not done that. Okay, you could say we haven't handed them many points either because of the 3 draws, but still winless in 4 derbies, and we're 2 points back. Um, at the worst, I mean, assuming we win next week, hopefully. But that's crazy, man. That's you got to count your blessings because that's a blessing because winless in 4 derbies and 2 points back. I don't know if that happens often. I don't know if that happens often.
That's definitely, despite having a Trifili as our crest, I mean, the last 10 years, over 10 years, I mean, we really haven't had that much good luck. So it's pretty good. It's a good feeling to, despite having that rough start, I mean, only be off by 2 points is pretty big. The good thing is we've been seeing our opponents take points off of each other, like we saw with Olympiacos and AEK over the weekend. And honestly, overall, I don't think there's anybody that seems too like convincingly strong so far at the start of the season. I feel like everybody's had their lapses and everybody kind of has their weaknesses. And it's just again, as it's been the last few years, the onus is on us to figure it out and try to get these wins in these derbies. Um, and to, again, take control of our own destiny. So we need to continue to get these wins against the mid tables, but we also need to start getting these wins in these derby matches. Draws aren't going to cut it.
It's very balanced for another season. We obviously saw it balanced last season. It's arguably even more balanced this year because now Addis is actually competent, more competent than they were last year. So instead of a top 4, we have a top 5 this year. I don't think ultimately Aris is going to make it till the end, but they're going to take points off the top four, like they already did. Like they've beaten Olympiacos and PAOK, I think, drew us. They're undefeated in derbies, right? So they have
I believe
AEK
so. Yeah.
next. They have AEK next week, but yeah, they're like the opposite of us. They're undefeated in derbies, yet they're on the same points as us, which is crazy. Or maybe they're just 1 point behind, whatever. But my point is that it's very balanced again, even more balanced, and not just the top five, but I think also the 5 through 8 is also quite strong. Obviously, we talked about Panaitolikos being very competent themselves, having taken points off the top five. I think Atromitos is quite decent too. Asteras is not bad at all. I think, gave PAOK a tough match last couple days ago. Obviously, they beat us. So I do think, in general, the league is quite balanced. Definitely 1 through 8. Um, and even Califea, like who is I think still winless and
Yeah.
sitting in last. They obviously took points off of us. I think they deserve to take points off of Olympiacos, but then didn't at the very end. Um, that's the last place team who's winless, and I think they're very competent. Um, so yeah, I think the league just very balanced. Teams will drop points. Um, I think, like you said, and like we've been kind of harping on about, it is gonna come down to the derbies, and we got to do a little better, not a little better, quite a bit better in the derbies in the second half, because also it might come down to a tiebreak situation, considering the top four is so close, and right now we're gonna lose in every tiebreak. I guess we have 3 draws, so not necessarily, but if we could win at least half the derbies in the second half, that puts us in a big advantage in the event of a tiebreak, because right now PAOK, Olympiacos, Aris, whoever wins the next game would have the tiebreak in those 3 matchups.
Right.
Because I believe it's head to head and then head to head goals, I believe. So
Yeah.
also important. But again, the first thing is just they're 6 pointers. You win those games, it goes a long way in the standings and the ladder. Uh, um, and yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've kind of, it's been up and down in derbies with a lot of these coaches, with Tareem, with even Yova. Um, Yova was pretty good, but it's just kind of been a talking point for years now. The derby record.
Yeah. Yeah. And with this playoff format, it's super important. Again, we play our rivals so many times, and that's the big part, is just trying to steal as many points off them as you can.
And now it's just a top four playoff, right? So,
Yeah. Yep.
which it's funny that the year that they make a top four playoff, the fifth team is actually probably deserving of being in the top four. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny. I'm gonna. We don't have any friends, but I'm gonna feel a little bad for Addis if they miss the top four, because that's tough. That's tough. I mean, it's gonna be tough for anyone. Listen, all
Yeah.
these 5 teams are deserving of a place in the top four, and it's gonna be tough for whoever's out. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to write off Addis too soon, and I hope it's not us. But the team that gets left out is gonna be tough for them, because all these teams right now are deserving of a spot. Um, and I also want to give credit to Rui Vittoria, even though it's not 100% yet, and it's not expected to be 100%. He has gotten 3 out of 3 league wins. Um, Obviously, his only blemish is that European game against Djurgården, which hurt because that was winnable and ultimately probably should have been won. We would have been in a much better position if it had been won, and we'd been still be able to get top 20, top 8. But anyway, he does have 3 out of 3 wins in the league, which I pointed out on Twitter. He did it in 3 weeks, which is the minimum time. Um, and Alonso got 3 wins in the league in 2 months. So obviously, I don't need to compare Alonso to Rui, because I think he's already doing better. But yeah, that's kind of just uh, to point out how tough it was.
Vamos. I mean, it's
Vamos,
just,
vamos.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy, dude. I mean, you know, I when we got Rui, I was a lot more confident. I was a lot more happy with it because I think that's what this team needs is just some, you know, it needs like a solid, strong character overall, just to have some direction. And it's just been a positive breath of fresh air, like you said. I mean, having 3 league wins in a row. You know, again, the blemish did hurt against Jew Garden, but overall, I mean, he's taking care of what he can at the moment. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Of course, there's definitely still some things that need to be worked on and rectified a little bit, but overall, it's nice actually seeing this Panathinaikos team start to kind of play with a little bit of an identity again. I felt like even under Tareem, like we had somewhat of an identity, but then like we saw a lot of like tinkering and changing, especially towards the end. So we kind of were seeing, you know, changes, and then Alonso tried to implement something like he tried to fit a square peg in a circle hole, and it just didn't work. You could just see the team dead possessions, no ball playing, and you know, again, we're seeing a little bit of this old style, traditional kind of football coming back a little bit, chasing it, going for goal, and kind of just, you know, heading into Helsinki a little bit. We touched on it, but I think, you know, this opportunity this week to, I think we play on Thursday against them. Um, you know, that'll be a good way to just continue what we did and what we saw against Panaitolikos on Sunday, and just to continue to build a little bit. Now, my concern for that game, the Helsinki game, and we touched on it again with Panaitolikos, is just like the striker situation. I'm not really comfortable with having Sporar and Yeremeyev. At this point, I think I just rather have Sporar start. Yeremeyev, in my opinion, is just fallen off a cliff this season. I mean, last season he scored like 8 goals in the same amount of minutes that he's played this season. I saw a stat on Twitter, and it's just some of the possessions, like offensively, when we go forward, like they die off because of a heavy touch or a misplaced pass, or he doesn't see it coming. Sporar, in a sense, kills some of the attacks with kind of his fluffs, but I also think that he's just a little bit better to having a more dynamic attack with what we've got at the moment. Obviously, Foti would be my number one choice. So that will be something to work through, and something that we're just gonna have to kind of deal with in this game. If I'm gonna assume anything, I think we're just gonna see more of us kind of relying on our wingers to score again. We're probably gonna have to rely on Juricic or Tete to score. I'd like to see Pelistri kind of show something. I feel like he's been a little bit of a disappointment so far. I can't lie. So that's really my main thing. And again, our midfield is starting to look a little bit, you know, somewhat alive. I remember in the game before the international break, I think it was against Volos. Like you mentioned, Unahi was starting to look like he was playing like himself, like the player that we signed. We even saw Bacaseta start to kind of step it up a little bit. And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of my thinking with this game, is just to try to get everybody to use this opportunity to establish some type of form, or some type of confidence, and some type of continuity from what we saw on Sunday. What are kind of like your thoughts about that for this upcoming game on Thursday?
Yeah, the striker situation is not good. Picking between Spora and Yeremayev is like I don't even have a fucking analogy. It's like Dumb and Dumber. I don't know. They're both
Yeah,
awful. I can't. Uh, to me, I know Yeremayev had a quite good season last year, given his limited opportunities. And Sturge has made it kind of uh his stance obvious that he thinks he's better off the bench. Um, I don't know. I mean, I would tend to agree that yeah, he's better off the bench, but even off the bench, I don't think he's anything special, unfortunately. Like you said, I think what hurts him a lot is that first touch, not being able to. I'm not even asking him to hold the ball. Like obviously, he's not supposed to be a 40 kind of hold up player, but he really doesn't even do the basics kind of at all. You could tell he's clumsy, which is unsurprising from his body. He has a very unfootball like body type. He's probably like what 6'5",
Really
one
lengthy.
eighty, 6'5",
Yeah.
180. Like I'm like a foot shorter than him and weigh the same amount. So yeah, he's not. And let's be. I think what at the end of the day, what he is, he's a tap-in merchant. That's all he is, right? Like, and you could see from even Panaitolikos, like he didn't have a good game, but like basically his one or two good chances. He had that post right before the Jurčić goal. Okay, he headed it. That's take some technique to do that. I'm not taking anything away, but that's the kind of I think the kind of player that you're going to expect from him. Just tap in, one touch. When it comes to that second touch, there's a good chance he's going to lose the ball. So, um, target man, traditional target man, number nine, not nothing like Foti, even nothing like Sporar, in my opinion. Even Sporar, I think, brings more to the table, even though his technique is nothing to write home about either. But Sporar can at least hold the ball a little more. Again, not asking him to do hold up play like Foti does, but I think he has a little better of a skill set than um than Yeremayev, which is very basic. So given
Yeah.
that, I would also probably go Spar off the from the beginning, bring on Yeremayev if necessary. But like you said, neither inspires confidence. Um,
Yeah.
makes me consider. Obviously, we've had this conversation many times in the past. False nine when we've been in this situation. I think it's quite unlikely given that Rui is new. Uh, if he does do false nine, it's going to be Jurčić or Tete, in my opinion, but it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, if he had been here for a little longer, maybe. But I think false nine could be good because then you could incorporate Palistri, Jurčić, and Tete, which I think is probably our three best attacking assets, given that Forti is unavailable. So sometimes I don't know what philosophy Rui goes by. Every coach has a different philosophy, but sometimes it's best to just throw your best assets out there. It depends on how much you like playing players out of position and whatnot. Every coach is different, but sometimes throwing your best assets out there is the way to go. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but
Yeah. It's funny as you were saying that, Alex. Maybe we've talked about this before, but can you imagine what kind of like Bechtara we would have if we had like Sporar with Jerry's finishing? Like he would be like the striker that we're missing right now. Like I feel like Sporar's got the touch a little bit, right? He's kind of got that positioning, but he whiffs so many chances. It'd be like if we had, Sporar with Jerry's finishing and technique a little bit in that front, it would be so much better. But we've got a guy that can't finish, and then we've got another guy that can't hold the ball. It just like
I
loses.
actually I actually think Spora is a good finisher. And
Really?
the reason I say that is because look at his goal record before he came to us. He was averaging a goal every other game in Portugal, in England, other top leagues. His track record was not bad, which is also why he came with a price tag, 3.5
Yeah.
million plus whatever. I don't know. I think it was salary plus transfer fee was like 7.5 million or something. But anyway, I think transfer fee was 3.5 million, which is for a few years ago. Obviously now we have the Tetes and the police trees, but for a few years ago was quite a bit of money for us. Um, and the reason he came with a price tag was because his goal scoring record was not bad, especially in decent leagues. Um, so I do think he's a good finisher, and we've seen bits of that with us. I think at the end of the day, what hurts him is lack of confidence, lack of play time, lack of confidence. Which obviously that's an extended thing, but he's never going to regain that confidence now. Like he's so down bad, and
Yeah.
he's not getting the chances because the chances that he's getting are so sporadic. Because okay, you're going to say that Foti is injured, but Foti is injured. He's going to be back in a couple of weeks. That's only like 2 games, right? So
Yeah.
he's not going to gain much confidence back with that. Of course, he's aging too. He knows that. He even I think he even had some comments recently that became public that he spoke about how he wants to leave or I think both him and Yeremayeff have expressed uh, kind of wherewithal of like kind of how their time with the team is going. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, that was a sidetrack, but yeah, I'm not defending him. I think he's he's tough to watch sometimes, but I do think that's mainly because of a lack of confidence and a lack of play time. Um, but
Yeah.
whatever, that's neither here or there now. He's not going to regain that, I don't think, at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because every time he does something, like especially not this year because he hasn't really done much this year, but every time he did something like last year, we're like, oh my god, is this him breaking out, right? Like, is
Yeah.
he back? Like,
To be fair, Alex, too, I remember when we signed him, Sporting and Middlesbrough fans, because I think he was at Middlesbrough for a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
They had mentioned his sporadic scoring, and like that's what they saw a lot of is what we saw last year. I remember like getting comments and replies and stuff like that when we signed him, and they just kind of mentioned like get ready, he's gonna score 2 goals one game and disappear for five, or he's gonna score 3 goals and disappear for four, or whatever it was. And we had thought, what, it's coming down to coming to the Greek league. It's a little bit of a weaker league compared to like England or Portugal. And to be fair, we did see something like you said last year, but like you said, his confidence just nosedived. I mean, Slovenia, we saw him playing pretty solid in the qualifiers. I remember for the Euros, but even in the summertime, man, by the time they were playing in the
uh,
tournament, I remember the commentators even
he became
mentioned,
a meme. He became a fucking meme on Twitter.
yeah, yeah, he
Not
did,
from
yeah,
not
like
from not from us, from people who don't even fucking know him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fans were like, "Oh my gosh, who's this for?" And I'm like, "Oh man, like poor guy. Obviously, he's been nothing but like a positive presence for the team. Like he's never said one bad thing. But like you said, it's clearly at this point like his confidence is so like down bad. We're probably never gonna see him rectify like even what like good we saw last season. Um,
And to be fair, at this level, consistency is kind of the biggest thing you could ask from a player, and it's kind of the thing that most players at this level lack. You mentioned like, they were saying stuff like, oh, he'll score 2 goals and then go missing for five, six. He's not the only one. Like, I think
yeah,
when it comes down to it, when we have complaints about how the team performs, it comes down to individual players not finding consistency. We talked about this a lot last year, like with Palacios, who was like, sometimes he was like our best player and sometimes he would go missing. Like, Mancini does that. Like, I'm not going to start listing off all these players. Kotsiras, like, but like, if you go down the line, you'll see that like these are players who like sometimes you're like, oh my god, this is like the best asset we have, and a lot of times you're like, well, this guy's nowhere to be found. So consistency at this level is maybe the most important thing. And that's why you have guys like, okay, Fati last year was quite consistent. That's why he was so good for us. Tete this year is so consistent. That's why he's so good for us. And even if you look at other teams like El Kabi, like El Kabi is probably the best striker in the league because he's consistent. And I'm not talking about because he scored a hat trick against AEK at the weekend. Two of those goals were fake goals, basically. One was a penalty and one was off of a mistake. But he is just consistent, right? Like you could rely on him, even if he doesn't score on a given week, you could rely on him that he has the possibility to score on that week because he's on his game every week. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, we have, I don't want to pick us out, but I think at this level in this league, there are too many players who are just not consistent, and you can't rely on them every week. Like, I think Palistri is falling into that category right now. Like, he is not
yeah,
someone right now. Hopefully he's trending up. He's trending up, but like up until, let's say, right now or just like maybe a week or so ago, he's not been someone who you're like, okay, he's on the pitch and he's going to turn up. Unlike Tete, who's like, all right, he's on the pitch and he's turning up. And he's had a couple of bad games or ineffective games, and that's going to happen. But the big picture, like if we've played 12 league games and another, handful European games, 16, 17 games, he's turned up in 14 of those 16,
yeah,
And that's consistency, and that's not all I could ask for at this level, but something I really emphasize a lot. So it's really nice to see that from Tete, and I hope kind of other guys like Police Unai, he's trending up too. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Especially at like going back to Sporar as well, like that ties into it. Like for a striker, consistency is like the most valuable thing that you can ask for at that position. I think that position, of course, like the defensive and goalkeeping positions are, I think it's super important to be really, really consistent there. And it's just one of those tough things. And I guess that, I mean, it's probably obvious, but that coincides with a lot of our issue with like lack of finishing that we've seen in some of these games. Um, Overall, like you said, I think we've luckily had the chance, to progress in terms of having guys like Tete, which I mean, when we signed him, I was a little bit apprehensive at that 10 million price tag. Because again, we saw Galatasaray fans saying that it wasn't worth it, but we're seeing him bring in that form that he had, I think, when he was in France with Lyon. I mean, the guy is just so good. Like even if he's not scoring, he's still creating threatening opportunities and opening somebody else up on the offensive end. So that's been fantastic. Again, Pelistri, you mentioned as well. That's a player that I am a little bit disappointed in. I'm not gonna lie, because he came with so much anticipation and hype. Again, it's still early. And like you said, I think he is starting to trend upward a little bit. Um, I just hopefully want to see him, make some more contributions, get a little bit more involved. I think he's also a player that maybe his confidence is a little bit lacking at the moment. And I think honestly, he just needs to, if that is the case, just kind of like look in the mirror and remember, like, hey, I came from Manchester United. Like I play for Uruguay national team. I'm a very talented player. And kind of just tap into that, and we should see some like positivity there. Going back a little bit to the striker thing, so we saw some rumors, and I think it was Papa Dimitriou that said in the winter window, Panathinaikos is going for a striker, and that's it. So it looks like we're not gonna bolster any other positions. Um, Personally, for me, I think it's a good idea to go after a striker. I'd offload Jerry if I possibly could. I know it's going to be hard to do in the wintertime, but just try to find somebody that's going to be a consistent striker. And it looks like Foti's been injury prone this season. So also just trying to find somebody to maybe also replace Foti, because we may see the sale of him in the summer. Who knows? So
Unfortunately, I don't think we're finding a long-term replacement in the winter.
yeah, who do you like? I'm seeing some ideas floated around. I'm seeing like, I think the most logical and probably most realistic expectation probably pick up somebody from a league that's, somewhat consistent. Obviously, not like some superstar goal scorer, but I think we just need to get somebody in, do some scouting that is going to be, at least somewhat reliable. I think we need somebody mobile too. I don't know if we should just go for a tap in merchant. Like, what kind of profile striker do you think we need to bring in the winter?
Hard to tell right now, given that obviously we just changed coach and it's a new system, and we haven't really seen exactly what that is. I would say a classic number nine. Like I think we have Foti. Hopefully, Foti comes fit and stays fit for the rest of the year. So I like someone who brings something different to the table than Foti does. So like I'm basically thinking like a Spore, basically like what we want from Spore, or what kind of
Right.
everything that I said before, like the good attributes that I think he had before he came to us and all of that, and kind of the classic number nine. I think that's kind of what we want, like someone who can hold the ball a little bit, not as much as Foti, but also is a good finisher, can be a target man. Kind of just like your balanced number nine, I think, because at the end of the day, he's probably assuming that Foti is going to be fit. This new striker is probably going to be playing a lot of 20 minutes off the bench. And I think that's kind of the direction we need to look, if that's the case. Again, now if Foti is injured, then that kind of Listen. If this guy's gonna start, then I still hold. I still say the same things. I think because you just kind of need a balanced striker. Given what we work a lot on the wings, still I think even with Rui, so I think a balanced striker is what we're looking for. I think I've seen some. I haven't seen a lot of names floating around, but that guy Hefte from Panaitolikos, Betancourt, has been floated around. I think, which ultimately I think that's kind of like you said. Given that it's the winter transfer window, and we're probably going to go for someone from the Greek league or a lower league. I think he makes sense. Um, he's an easy solution, kind of your classic winner signing. And he's not a bad solution either. I mean, he was top scorer before this weekend. Obviously, El Kabi had his hat trick, but before El Kabi's hat trick, he was top scorer in the league, I think. Um,
Yeah,
I think El Kabi is on like what, 9, and he was on 7. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, entering this weekend, he was top scorer, obviously for a lower team, which is pretty impressive. Um, 7 goals, if I'm correct, 7 goals in 12 games. I mean, that's better than any of our strikers are doing, right? So,
yeah.
listen, I don't think it's gonna, if it's something like that or exactly that, I don't think anyone's gonna, be super excited, but I don't think it's um, a horrible solution. And you gotta think too, like who's gonna want to come? Let me say, anybody who looks at the team knows that this is Forti's position. So
Yeah,
who's going to want to come? No big high profile. I'm not talking about super high profile, but no
yeah,
decently high profile player is going to want to come knowing that it's Forti's position. Of
yes.
course, there's always competition. Like, oh, I could steal this position from this guy. Healthy competition. But I think we all know what Forti brings to us and his value, and um, not only his value on the pitch, but his monetary value also. So I don't think anyone's going to be fooled that it's not Forti's position. So given that, you're not, that kind of restricts on who would be willing to come. Someone like Hefte would be willing to come because it's a step up in his career. Um, yeah,
I have a guy, and this is obviously it's not going to happen, but there's a guy that I've really been a fan of this player for many years,
is his
and I
name
feel like
Berg?
he would. Oh yeah, that's this is the Finnish bird, and I think you might remember him too. His name's Timu Puki.
Oh,
Timu
is he still?
Puki.
He was in the MLS, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's still in the MLS. I was looking him
Yeah,
up
he
right now.
still is. Where is he?
Yeah, and
Minnesota, I think. Is he Minnesota?
Minnesota United. Yep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2023 he signed. And I mean, this guy fits that Berg mold. I remember when Berg was linked with leaving Panathinaikos, that year that he left, like 2017. We had Pookie on the short list as a possible replacement when he was playing for Brenby. And I mean, the guy just fits the mold. I mean, he's 34 years old, so he's not a
Ooh,
young
sorry.
guy,
Yeah.
but he's at a solid age. He's established. I don't think he's gonna be a type of player that's gonna come in and think he's gonna be the star player for Panathinaikos.
Yeah.
But he'd come in and I think he'd get the job done. I mean, everywhere he's gone, I've got his stats right here. I mean, he's been a goal scorer everywhere he's gone. Even Minnesota, 35 appearances, 14 goals. He scored 42 goals for Finland and still plays for their national team. He scored 87 goals for Norwich
Yeah,
over a span of
that's where he
years.
was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, Brenby, he scored 46. Like he fits that Berg mold.
Hey, you
Definitely
just
a
you're just like a Scandinavian striker.
I love a Scandinavian striker. That's what it is. Like Timu Pukki, Marcus Berg, like those types of players. Every time I think of like a traditional striker like that, a complete striker, I just think of that. I think of those two especially. It would be great. Obviously, I don't think it's gonna happen. Maybe it would have been more realistic, like if we still had Alonso who had that like MLS connection. But I think realistically, we're probably going to go with somebody like you mentioned from the Greek league, just because it's so much easier. I feel like to make that transfer happen versus
That's
trying to
not a
negotiate.
bad shout though, because also of the MLS season.
Right? Yeah,
So
that's
there,
true.
so for those that don't know, the MLS plays different season. They finish about now. I think that this is kind of the time that they finish, and then they pick up again in March. So the MLS offseason is the winter for European leagues, and that works well for winter transfers because yeah, they don't have a job in January. Basically, they're on vacation. So, also, what's his contract? I guess if you're looking at it, because their seasons are different. Maybe his contract's up out after this year.
I know that's right. So let's see. So that's probably gonna pop up on SofaScore, right?
Or transfer market. Let me see.
Transfer market. Yeah, let's pull that up because I'm curious. Timu Pukki, so he's on $1 million or €1 million contract. It looks like.
Expires 2025, June 2025.
Oh, so he's got
Okay.
6 months.
So if this is correct, see, that would be surprising if their contracts expire in the middle of the season because June 2025 is right in the middle of the MLS season. So,
That's right.
I'd be maybe I don't know. I don't follow enough MLS. I don't know how their contracts work. I would have assumed that their contracts are formatted around the season, so different than Europe, but
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe his contract is really up in June, which nullifies my point. But anyway, that's still a good shout. And I think it's definitely a possibility. But it would just, I think if his contract is up June 2025, then you'd have to pay a transfer fee for him in the winter. And a transfer fee for a 34-year-old whose contract is up in 6 months is obviously not wise.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be ideal. I mean, yeah.
So anyway, you got Pookie shout. I got Hefte Betancourt shout. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, trying to think in the league who would be interesting.
I'm trying to think as well.
Atromitos has a plethora of strikers. I know because they got Carlitos. I would not want Carlitos back. But they have Carlitos. They have Van Vert, who obviously had a stint at
Ike and
Volos, and he's kind of pretty good. I mean, he's also older. I think he's above 30, but he could, he's never going to be the guy you rely on, but I don't know. I that would excite me way less than Hefte or even Pookie. Yeah. It would be a kind of a weird move in his career. Volos, Ike, Atromitos, Panaitolikos. That would be a weird career trajectory. So I don't think that's too likely, but I know they have four strikers or something. Like they definitely have a plethora of strikers at Atromitos. So maybe there's something there other than Carlitos and Van Vert.
Yeah, there's got to be something. Remember, I mean, I don't think he's a striker. Remember Nikos Kaltsas?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we saw him recently.
Yeah, Kaltsas was playing for I think he plays for Astera still, right?
Does he? Yeah, I definitely remember him popping up recently.
Kaltsas, man, I liked him when he was with us, but let's see. I just got a list here of like strikers, but a lot of these strikers, I mean, they're playing for Ike, they're playing for Olympiacos, PAOK. Like that's not.
Yeah, no.
Realistically, we're gonna get somebody like from the Greek league, maybe mid-table team, bottom.
That's why Hefte is like quite realistic. Mid-table team. Yeah. I don't think he's super old.
Yeah, I think he fits the mold of like a winter transfer for the position, especially for Panathinaikos. But I mean, again, we could be surprised too because I've been shocked by the transfers we saw in the summer. Honestly, I mean, maybe we'll look outside the league. Who knows? But yeah,
bit of a pivot. But you heard about the Bernard shouts?
No, I haven't. What's been going on with that?
Yeah, so Bernard is out of favor in Brazil. Apparently, he's had a quite horrific season so far. Where is he? He's at Atletico Mineiro. Is that where he's at?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of where he's at, he's not been doing well, and I guess there's some noise from only the fans, not from anything more official, but there's some noise about him, people wanting him back. Which, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, I you know what? I think he gave it his all. Like I think he gave what whatever he had left in his gas tank for us the last like few months with Tareem. Like I remember him telling Tareem that he was just gonna like die on the pitch and like do anything to win. I think that was just him finally just giving it all. And then he went to Monero and he's just kind of like he's spent. And you know, I learned this with when we signed Leto again. I feel like with Panathinaikos fans, we live a lot on nostalgia, and sometimes it's better to just leave a chapter closed to where it's been, just so that we leave it on a high. So he left on a high. Let's not bring him back, and he just stinks the place up, and it's kind of like we kick him out, because he's not doing good or he rides the bench. That's not what we need right now. I mean, we've seen Juricic like fully informed. We've got Pelistri now. Tete, like I think we're good. I don't know. Do you want him back?
No, absolutely not. I mean, again, he was a good servant to the club. He had a great second half of the season, but you could tell that he was running out of steam. Obviously, like if you look at his whole tenure, which was only 2 years, so it wasn't long, but at least half of it was underwhelming, right? So it's really easy to look at the last 6 months, which were very good, and forget about the other 18 months, which weren't all bad, but they were up and down, right? So he's inconsistent. Again, going back to that consistency that we were talking about, and he's not going to find more consistency as he gets older, right? When he left us, he was 31. He's probably 32 by now. He's only going to go to 33. Like,
yeah,
he wasn't he wasn't Modricing it. Like he wasn't getting better with age.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah.
Again, like I loved him. He really helped us out in the second half. Left on a trophy, the cup. And again, look at the facts. Like that is not a position we need to bolster, right? So
yeah,
that he was. I mean, he played Cam too. He played left wing. He played Cam. Neither, whether you want to consider him a left wing or you want to consider him a Cam, neither right now is something we need bolstering in. Cam, we're good. We have Baca. We have Unahi if he needs to come in. Jurcic if he needs to play there. Left wing, we have Jurcic again. We have Pelistri. We have Mancini.
yeah.
It's not neither position is we need bolstering. He's going to be on big wages, even with bad form. He's a name brand player. So he's going to be on big wages. Age. I mean, there's like so many reasons why it doesn't make sense. And like you said, it's just mostly nostalgia, nostalgia is funny because nostalgia usually you're talking about like 10 years prior, 20 years prior.
Yeah.
Right now we're talking about 6 months prior. So,
6 months. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a no on that. And then the other one is Vikos is the left back we signed from Levadiakos. That's for next summer. 24 years old, Greek, obviously with the name Vikos. Yeah, I mean, we have good relationship with Levadiakos. We send players between each other quite a bit. I don't know what the fee is. There must be a fee because on Transfer Market it says his contract is until 2027. He's only valued at less than $500,000 on Transfer Market, so I'm sure it's not that much. Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes into the bigger question that I want. We're kind of jumping all over the place now, but like, obviously, we talked about how the team said that they're only going to move for a striker in the winter. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Considering Vikos is for the summer.
Yeah, and kind of like, how do I feel about us just going for the striker?
Yeah. Do you think we need something else? Kind of like that.
You know what? I think overall, I think that's probably the move. I think that is our need. Defensively, again, unfortunately, Magnuson went down with that injury out for
yeah.
months. Yeah. That sucks. That's terrible, of course. But I mean, the one thing that I do feel a little bit better about is like, although Bart's kind of been like, he's kind of not been himself. We've got Bart, we've got Arau, like we've got some cover at least a little bit at the left back. I haven't been too big of a fan of Ingeson, honestly. Like I feel like he almost cost us yesterday. In fact, I think I think Panaitolikos scored on like he flopped, like he went for a header and just flopped, and then they scored. But overall, other than that, I think like our lack of having a clinical finisher is really the big issue. Like that solves a ton of issues, obviously. So it's just a matter of us signing a competent striker, and like we listed a few of those. So if we go in and we sign somebody competent and somebody that the coach wants, I don't want Papa Dimitriou going in and just picking who he wants. Again, I think the Aussies already talked about that whole like thing going on with Papa Dimitriou, but you know, if we go in and Rui's like, I want this striker, this is the guy that's gonna fit our mold and what we need right now, then I'll be fine. If we go in and let's say we're not even able to sign a striker, man, I'm gonna be a little bit pissed and just hope that Foti will be able to play. But honestly, dude, I'm concerned with how many players we have on the squad. Like we have too many players.
Yeah, that's why it's not surprising that they basically came out and said that we're not going to move for anyone other than a striker, because you bring people in, you got to offload people, and
Yeah,
you know that should have happened in the summer. Obviously, like the Valenas, dude, this guy's on 1.5 million and he's not seeing the pitch. He's not seeing the bench. He's not seeing the
yeah,
fucking bench.
yeah,
1.5 million. You know, you got the Valenas, the Sporors, who else? Verbic, like these guys
yeah,
combined are almost like 5 million. Just those three guys are almost 5 million yearly wages, and they're not even seeing the pitch. Okay, Sporar is, but for argument's sake, they're basically not seeing the pitch. Two of them are not seeing the bench. So yeah, to bring in, you got to offload, and obviously they're not confident that they could do that in the winter. And honestly, we've said this so many times, so I don't want to harp on it too long. But like, who's gonna buy these players? Like, who's gonna come knocking for Velena? Who's gonna come knocking for Verbic? Unfortunately, that's the reality. Um, so you know, you're stuck with them kind of until maybe in the summer, but like not even then, because who's going to come knocking on for them then too? Because these guys are on huge wages, and no one is going to justify that wage, and they're not going to. I mean, maybe they want game time. I'm sure they want game time. I hope they like the sport, but they're just
yeah.
collecting money. And they're not going to get that money from another team. You know, they're not going to get half of
No,
that from another team. Valena's got another 2 years on the contract.
I think so. Yeah, 1 to 2
He
years.
signed for 4 years. Signed for 4 years.
And
Verbic
that
was
was
three,
when,
Spore was
yeah,
three. Anyway,
that's right.
so yeah, I'm not surprised that you know that we're only moving for a striker, and I don't think we need much else. Obviously, striker is a big need, like we said. Wings, I think we're good. We basically have two options on each side. Um, Tete Mancini on the right, Juricic, Palistri on the left. So I think you're good there. Uh, Midfield, I think we're very good too. We're so good that Maximovic can't even get in the starting lineup.
Yeah,
Maybe for other reasons, I don't know. But listen, this was a guy who was poised to be a starter, and he's not. So the fact that he's on the bench, I think, kind of points that we're good. Um, you know, you have, I mean, pick three: Baca, Charon, Arau. That means Unahi and Maximovic are on the bench. I think that's pretty good. And then obviously you have Nikas for league, and um, you know, so I think you're good in mid. And then you know, left back, right back, you got two guys in each spot. Max is a question mark. I guess there's some shouts about reinforcing left back. If Max is not a factor, then yes, reinforce left back. But
yeah,
I'm not assuming that Max is not a factor. I'm assuming that he is a factor. Of course, he's not been a factor so far, but we saw him come on as a sub recently. As far as we know, his injury concern is basically sorted. So I'm assuming that we have a fit Max and a fit Mladenovic. Hopefully, Mladenovic can get a breather because he's played about 3 million consecutive games. Um, but if you have Max and Mladenovic, I'm good with that. You know, I'm
yeah,
fine with that. On the right, you have Kotsiras and Vayanidis. I'm fine with that. And then center back, obviously we lost Magnuson, which hurts. But you still have four center backs theoretically: Bar, Jedvai, Ingeson, and I
Palmer
guess
Brown supposedly back.
Palmer Brown is theoretically fit. He's been in the squad list. He featured in the squad list like almost 2 months ago, but we
Yeah.
haven't seen him since. So again, a little more transparency would be good. But positive news is that also Rui Vitoria said all my players are going to play.
Yeah.
So let's see it. Let's see if all my players are going to play. If all my players are going to play, I would expect to see Palmer Brown. I've done that before. Palmer Brown.
Palmer Brown.
Palmer Brown. I would hope to see maybe in the cup match because it's a two-legged tie
Yeah.
against Atromitos. If not starting, then off the bench, definitely. I assume Schenkenfeld will probably start that game. Maybe partner with Palmer Brown or Palmer Brown off the bench. We'll see.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
depth wise, I'm fine. I'm not super concerned
Yeah.
with any of the depth other than striker.
Whatever happened to remember Alex Trullier, that Frenchman? Did we keep him or did we end up like selling him off? I remember we loaned him somewhere. Maybe it was to
So
Volos.
he was loaned to Volos last year, and I don't think he's loaned this year. I know Chokai is loaned to Levadiakos, but I don't think Trier is loaned. I don't think.
Yeah, so that's another midfielder we got there too as well.
It's another
Trullier.
midfielder, but like, how is he ever going to get in? You know, like
Yeah.
if you have theoretically you have Unahi and Maximovic off the bench,
Yeah.
he would be your third bench option theoretically, and that's assuming that he's ahead of someone like Nikas or something. So I he got unlucky. Obviously, he had the ACL.
Yeah, his first game.
I don't think he impressed at Volos as far as I know, which is upsetting because I mean he was young. He still is young, but when he came to us, he was 21. Now he's probably like 22, 23, still young. If he's not loaned out, I mean, we should just figure this out. Which I don't think he is, but if he's not loaned out, that's a big uh just goes to show how bad the club is run, because to not be able to loan out that kind of player at that
Yeah.
age, somewhere within the league, like a Volos type of thing, which he did last year. You're gonna tell me that none of the teams outside of the top five, that's almost 10 teams, right? None of those
Not loaned out.
teams are interested in a loan for a
Yeah.
23-year-old center mid.
He's still playing for us. Yeah, he's not loaned out.
Yeah.
He just got loaned out last season. 24 appearances, 1 goal. Yeah, he just had
Listen,
one appearance for us.
He's not a goal scoring midfielder, so I'm
No.
not going to judge him too much on stats, but I think based on what I read, what I heard, the little that I saw, he just didn't do much to overly impress.
Yeah.
But still, like such a failure not to be able to loan out this player. Like,
Yeah, I mean, he seems like
God.
a decent player. I mean, again, that's a position that we talked about that we're pretty much stacked in. But it's just some players I think that like we still got on the squad to where we're just like I feel like we waste so much money. Like with all these players, all these sackings we do, all these continuous like hiring of new coaches and new signings, like we waste so much money and so much time. Like I remember, you probably remember this guy too. Remember Jens Vemmer? Like this was like I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I mean, remember what a like big deal that one was that he just sat on the contract for however many years because we couldn't let go of him. Now we've got like 3 or 4 Jens Vemmers on the team, and it's like ridiculous. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms. But overall, that's just kind of like where we're at. Like, good thing is, again, we have quality players. We also have a lot of dead weight that we need to get rid of, and we understand that's why the club is going for that one signing at striker, which I think is probably the most important position at the moment. Only because again, Sporar and Yeremayev just haven't been cutting it, and our star striker, Ioannidis, has been injured pretty consistently this season. So signing that striker is going to be super important. Before we kind of shift gears, did you want to address any last comments about the FC before we move on?
Yeah, Fortis extension. I don't remember if our Australian friends covered that last week. That happened recently, in the last week, 10 days max. Obviously that was coming. I don't have much to say about that. That's just self-explanatory, good stuff. Via contract extension also, that happened a couple weeks ago. That was also coming. Don't have much to say about that either. Just stating the facts. Trying to think. I didn't write any notes for this one, so it's just off memory. So apologies if we forget anything. Yeah, I just I think we forgot to say for Helsinki, Sturge I think mentioned that their season ended maybe in October. They have a weird season two, because of Scandinavia.
Yes,
So
right.
they're kind of, they, if that's correct, which I'm going to trust Sturge on that, they haven't played a game in like a month, let's say. So that's something to look for. That's kind of crazy. I mean, I know it happens, but like that's crazy that teams have to do that in Europe. That's just such a disadvantage. So hopefully we could make that our advantage. Let's see. Because they should be rusty if they haven't played in a month. But I guess let's see how many. I'm gonna see how many maybe internationals they have, because they would have played more recently.
Yeah, they would have been definitely more fit. Let's see
So yeah,
Helsinki.
they have a lot of Finnish players, which obviously we played Finland too in the break. None of the names are ringing any bells, but
They just
they
signed
have a
that
Greek
Greek player.
they have a Greek Anelopoulos.
They have another
Yeah.
one. This guy, Azulas, is that another one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they got a couple Greeks on
Anyway,
the team.
so they got a couple Greeks, they got a bunch of Finnish players. I wish I could just see somewhere transfer market has just international
Yeah,
national team players four. Okay. So they don't have a lot of national team players. So yeah, they should be rusty. That should play
yeah.
to our advantage. I mean, we're at home. I guess we could talk a little bit about what's at stake now, considering there's 3 games left in Conference League. We sit on 1 point, which
Yeah.
is quite tragic, considering we were favored to be in the top 8. Sims and projections were putting us well in the top 8, even in the top 5. One of the favorites for the whole thing. I think 4th or 5th favorite to win it all. Obviously, behind the Chelseas, behind the Fiorentinas, behind the Betis. But yeah, we were up there, and now we're down there because we sit on 1 point after 3 games. The good thing is that we've played probably our hardest games. Obviously, Chelsea is a extremely tough game. Borac was not easy, and Djurgården proved to not be easy. And now we have Helsinki, Dynamo Minsk, and the
Let me
New
see.
Saints. The New Saints.
New Saints, yeah.
So those 3 are theoretically easier than the first 3. Still, we would have hoped for something better than 1 point. I mean, I think everyone thought we could have had 6 out of 9 points. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way. So now top 8 is gone basically, because the maximum amount of points we can finish with is 10 points, which I don't think is enough. I think the threshold for top 8 was 12 points. So top 8 is theoretically and practically out of the picture. Now we just need top 24. I think if we finish, again, this is all theoretically, if we finish with 3 out of 3 wins and 10 points, I think that would put us in higher in the top, in that middle section. So obviously not top 8, but it would put us maybe 10th or 11th, which matters. 10th or 11th, you get an easier draw than 22nd, let's say.
Right.
Because then that's the first knockout round, which basically you take the middle part of the table, and the middle part plays each other. So if you're lower in that middle, if you're 22nd, you're going to play like the 10th team. So yeah, you want to be higher in that middle 24. So that's still on the table. I think kind of comfortably. I think even if we win one and draw two, we still make the top 24. Like it should be very easy. The question is how high in that top 24, 8 to 24, 9 to 24 we can get. And hopefully it's higher. Hopefully it's like, 10, 11 or 12. But that would probably require 3 wins, which I think is doable. We have 2 more home games. Helsinki and Minsk is home. The New Saints is away, which are supposed to be not that good. They're playing not in their own stadium also because their stadium, I think, was not up to standard. So there's no reason it shouldn't be 3 out of 3. But again, nothing is a given. You can't underestimate anyone. We have a new coach. We've seen some good, some bad. Obviously, the tale of two halves cannot happen because it's still Europe. Like anyone, even I think the New Saints, which are the weakest of the 3 opponents left, like if you're bad for 10 to 15 minutes, like they're going to be able to score on you. So you can't have such a tale of two halves thing going on. Like it gotta iron that out.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There's a lot at stake. Unfortunately, like you mentioned earlier, the projections and the statistics and the simulations and all that kind of had us being a top 8 team, which I was like super delighted with. But realistically, we see that's out of the picture now. And again, it being Europe, I mean, like you said, this is why we play the games. And I think that's part of me, like overall in sports, where I get upset with is where people just like will write off teams completely. Like what would be the point of competition in sport, right? If there couldn't be a chance for an upset or couldn't be a chance for a loss. So we could very well, go in and lose, which we don't want, but that's why we go in, we play the game, we compete. We try to get that win so that we can just try to build something, get grease some coefficient points, build ourselves up a little bit. And maybe, again, try again next year. Overall, I think we'll kind of try and rectify some of the issues that we saw. Overall, I mean, like you mentioned, their league stopped. They have a relatively younger squad in some positions. Like I was looking, some of their guys are like 22 to like 24 years old. They've got some experience on the team, but again, we do have the advantage in that we've continuously been playing. Like we just had our game yesterday. So coming up on Thursday against Helsinki, I'm hoping we get that win. We've got a lot of things going in our favor in that part, but again, that's why we play the games.
And listen, it's so, I don't know if I've said this on the pod before, but it's so important just to get more games in Europe, not just because of the coefficient, but also because you gotta recover some of that European DNA that we lost after being out for six years. I know we went into last season with very high European expectations. The group was fairly easy. We should have gone out of the group, at least at the minimum, fallen down to conference last year. Obviously, not being able to get a draw against Maccabi at home was a failure. I'm not excusing that, but the reality also is that when you're out of Europe for so long, or out of any competition, when you're not competitive for so long, you lose that DNA, like that European DNA that we know this team has from the 90s and 2000s. You lose that. It sounds weird, maybe it sounds stupid, but I truly believe that. That's just how it works. So not only do you lose the coefficient, but you also lose that DNA, and it takes time to rebuild that. So I think it's kind of like stepping stones is the way I look at it, or building blocks. Like you can't just go back first year that you're back in Europe and expect to make like a semifinal run, no matter how easy you think your group is, because you've fallen down yourself. Like you're not Panathinaikos of the early 2000s. You're Panathinaikos of the late 2010s, unfortunately. So you need to build upon. You just need to build, right? So one year you make knockout, great. The next year, round of 16, and so forth. Like that's a more realistic trajectory than just thinking off the bat you're going to go to the semifinals. So just to summarize my rant, last year the expectations I think were too high. This year, unfortunately, I think the expectations were also too high. Yes, Conference League is not a high level. We want to be in a higher level category than Conference League, but unfortunately, this is what we got to do to build ourselves up, coefficient and DNA. And look, we had expectations of top 8. That didn't happen. For a second year, we over expected things. We just need to make knockouts. We need to make knockouts, get some footing, get some confidence as a team, get the DNA back a little bit, and we're going to build on that. So I'm just eyeing knockouts, and whatever happens after that, I think we've set a good foundation for next year, and hopefully our league finish ensures that we have a Europe to build upon.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, on that we could go to basketball.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much beat the horse dead here with PAO FC, but yeah, just set realistic goals, set realistic expectations, and work at it at a slower pace.
Everyone wants this team to finish top 8 in conference. Like everyone wants that, but
yeah,
the reality is that we've been out of Europe for a while and we're still struggling to find that footing. So find that footing, and then we could talk about top 8 finishes, runs, this and that.
Unfortunately, Greek people, we don't really have patience. So,
hey, listen, I got excited too when I saw the Sims and when I saw like all the pool of teams in conference. I'm like, yeah, we are better than 25 of these teams for sure. I did it too, and
me too.
I'm not blaming anyone. It's not blame. It's just I'm just trying to take a step back and look at the big picture and try to think about it rationally and logically and whatever.
Yeah. Well, now onto some more, I guess, different. Yeah, it's a little more positive with PAO FC.
Different.
PAO BC.
But yeah, same but different.
Same but different. We ended up having a loss to Zalgiris this past week in EuroLeague. We ended up falling to them in Kaunas in Lithuania. Their new signing, Lonnie Walker from the NBA, had a breakout game in the EuroLeague, 24 points, getting dunk of the week, play of the week. Panathinaikos basketball was without Coach Adaman. We've been knowing about this for a couple of weeks now. The news had come out that he was going to be with the Turkish national team coaching them, along with Cedi Osman as well. Cedi did not come to play with Panathinaikos for this game, although we did have Omer Yurtseven. And so we're missing a couple key components. We ended up falling to Zalgiris. Wasn't necessarily a blowout. For the most part, I believe Zalgiris had led the entire game. There may have been a brief moment where we were up by like maybe a point, but overall, in Kaunas, in Lithuania, Zalgiris started the game off like really hot. I mean, they were shooting lights out first 2 quarters. We saw that Panathinaikos towards the end of the second quarter with Slukas and Kendrick Nunn starting to spark a little bit of a comeback. We were down 18 points at the 4-minute mark. We brought it down within, I think, 7 points heading into halftime. And we saw it slowly start to continue as we went into the third quarter, chipping away at that lead. Panathinaikos eventually tied the game or went up by 1 point. And then, unfortunately, Zalgiris just started hitting their barrage of threes again. Realistically, I think our defensive lapses are what really caused us to, fall in the end. Offensively, I felt like we were fine. We hit some tough shots, but there were times where defensively we were just letting them get so many easy buckets. I felt like Lesor was a key point for me. Like he only had 8 points. He wasn't really doing too much. I felt like Yurtseven did a much better job in this game, just with his rebounding. Overall, this was for me a scheduled loss. Add in the fact that we had Ataman out and then we had Osman out as well. It's like Zalgiris in their home or like our boogie team whenever we play them. So it's hard. I think only Fenerbahce has so far been able to beat them in their home this season. So it's tough to win there, and it's not like we got blown off the floor either. It's unfortunately, negative for our record. We went down to like fifth or sixth after being in second place, but nothing that really worried me or scared me too much. Because again, the opponent Zalgiris and they're well coached.
Was this the game that Nunn got into foul trouble early?
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. He
Yeah,
had 3 fouls in the second quarter. By the second quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, so that doesn't help. Obviously, his minutes were limited because of that. This was Friday. I'm trying to without the notes, it's hard to remember after so many days. I mean, I guess it's only 3 days, but yeah, I like you said, Zalgiris is not. They're quite good this season, especially at home. And they took that form from last year. They were pretty poor in the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season they turned it up. I think since Trincari came, right, because he was not there the whole season. So since he came in the second half, they turned it up, and then they kind of took that form into this year. So unsurprising that they're good because of their trajectory. Like you said, tough at home, good home arena atmosphere. I think what really hurts about this one is that we did come back and then we kind of let it go. Not that I almost would have kind of preferred to just not have come back. Kind of got teased with a comeback, and I don't remember exactly what happened after that comeback, but I guess it was. I mean, they were just hitting the threes, like you said, but I don't know. I don't know how much not having Ataman affects that. I don't know. I think it probably would have more or less been the same. I think more, not having none on kind of a limit would have been a bigger thing. Kind of you lose one of your shooters there. If they're hitting their threes, you lose one of your shooters. That doesn't help. And of course, the defensive lapses in the end don't help either. But I don't. Still 7-4. I don't make too much of it. We have Monaco next up at home. I don't want to say should win that one, but that's kind of a must win. You don't, not because Monaco is a pushover. Obviously, they're not. But you kind of don't want to have a 2-game slide, is what I'm saying. That would feel kind of bad, especially at home. So it's a must win from that perspective.
Yeah. 100% because they're right. We're tied with them in terms of wins. So we have the same wins and losses. We're fifth, they're sixth. We're just ahead of them on points. We've scored 10 more points. They've just fired their coach Sasha Obradovic, so they're kind of coming off of weird periods. So they're gonna be wanting to come in. Spanulis is linked with being the coach for Monaco. That's definitely a must win. Paris is actually ahead of us right now with 8-3 record. So we've definitely got to beat Monaco. And I mean it's kind of a surprise. Bayern's doing really good too. Bayern's 8-3.
Paris, their guy had their crazy game recently, right?
Yes, yeah. Somebody on their team,
Obst, I think.
Obst, yeah, he broke the record for most 3 points in 3 points made in a EuroLeague game, 11 of them. So
they got a good team, and listen, these are. Bayern was our opener, our EuroLeague opener, and it was obviously at home, and we beat them. So that's like at that time, it didn't seem like much because we were just thinking it was the Bayern of last year who finished bottom 3 or whatever. But in hindsight, that was a pretty big win on opening day. And the Paris loss doesn't seem that bad anymore, does it now?
No.
Because they've beaten 7 other teams other than us. So.
And they blew out Barcelona. And to put in perspective, Barca's in 8th and Real Madrid are in 10th. So this season is like shaping up to be pretty crazy. Like a lot of these teams that you thought would be good are actually not doing as well as you thought. And a lot of these teams that we thought would be bad are actually doing better. I mean, even Fenerbahce, for example, is 9-2, and I think we beat Fenerbahce as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're one of their 2 losses. They beat Olympiacos, and then we
Oh yeah,
ended
we
up
did. We did.
yeah.
So it's very like just like we said about the Greek league and footy, like it's very balanced. Like there's no Madrid 15-0 or whatever like they were last year.
Yeah.
Like 1 through like yeah, I'm not looking at the table you are, but it's pretty balanced up until like probably like 12th, right?
Yeah, overall it's pretty even keeled, and then once you get to like 13th to 18th, like
Yeah.
it dips
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Partizan,
So I
bad.
mean, we're only 2 games behind in first place. I think Fener is quite good.
Yeah.
But I mean that middle of the pack, like 3 to 8, 3 to 9, is definitely like Olympiacos is what they're also 7-4. Or are they 8-3?
They're 8-3.
They're 8-3. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be pretty good. I mean, yeah, Olympiacos, they're starting to find their stride a little bit. They had some struggles, but same. I mean, again, us 7-4. I'm not too. We've had a pretty difficult schedule. I mean, like you said, we didn't know when we started off the season playing Bayern. We didn't know it was going to be that Bayern, right? Bayern's 3rd place. We've played Fenerbahce. We beat them. We've played Paris, who's in 4th place. They're ahead of us. We've played Zalgiris. We've played quite a few teams, and overall, I haven't been too concerned. Again, there's some things that we can improve, like our defensive intensity. And I think going back to the Zalgiris game, I feel like we took some stupid shots in the 3rd, and that's kind of ultimately what also allowed them to get back in the game. Like Juancho, for example, I mean, just chucking up stupid shots, but not all the time, but especially in that 3rd quarter. So just some of these, like, it's not like they're big mistakes. They're just little stupid lapses that you call a timeout and you kind of adjust to it. Overall, I can see us trying to get that win against Monaco. I think we're playing at home for that game. So
I
yeah,
think
we
so,
are.
yeah.
So yeah, so that should be good. We'll have home crowd, home advantage. Try to rack up a win. I'm hoping we see a Bayern. Let's see. Bayern's going to be playing. I don't see who Bayern's playing. Oh, Bayern's going to be playing Red Star in Serbia, so that's going to be tough for them. Tough environment. Sferopoulos is under like heat right now, so they're going to be pretty tough to beat. Olympiacos is playing Partizan in Serbia as well, so that's a very hostile environment. Hoping Jelko does us a favor and gets a loss for or gets a win for Partizan there. And overall, yeah, I mean we've got to do a week in control, and I think we'll be okay. And we can kind of climb back up that ladder. It just goes week by week basis, really, in the EuroLeague. Let's see. Overall, I mean we've got what we've got. We're gonna have Osman back again. We're gonna have Yurtseven again, back with us again. But overall, I'm not too concerned with PAO BC.
They
I
put
think
up a
really,
combined 55 points for Turkey.
yes, combined 55 points. That's right. Yeah, they did have that good performance. Shout out to Yurtseven again. I mean, he played for us on Friday, and then he flew out and played with Turkey right after for the national team and put up a good performance. I mean, for me, I think he's been so far the best signing of the summer. I mean, he's been playing even better than Osman. So pretty consistent player. Um, Overall, I mean, again, we'll have Ottoman back on Friday. I think we can pull out a win. It'll be important. Did you have anything else you wanted to add in about PAO BC before we kind of wrap things up?
Don't think so.
All right. That's pretty much all I've got for PAO BC. Again, like it's looking a lot more positive than it is for the FC. We have to like dissect everything. But if you guys aren't already, be sure to follow us on X. We're at PAO Fans International. Same with our Instagram page. We've also got a Facebook page and a YouTube channel that you can subscribe and follow us on. We've also got a TikTok page as well where we post some edits. And then we even have a blogger site where we upload our blog. So please be sure to leave a like and comment on whatever platform you're listening to. Send in some questions whenever you guys have for us about Panathinaikos, and maybe we can address them on the podcast as they come in. But this is the American crew signing off. Alex, it was good having you on again, man.
Dale,